what were your favorite, most memorable things about your time at Fourth? And if you've already answered that, that's fine. But if there's anything else you'd like to add, please do so.
Well, Christmas Eve, Easter morning, just what could be better? And I used to thank God every time that what better place to be in the world than as pastor of this wonderful church on those evenings and that Christmas Eve. Used to be 11 o'clock service. We, as the congregation grew, but also began to add families, which was really one of the big transitions in the life of Fourth Church, is when families started staying downtown. We started building up a wonderful, wonderful group of young adults, young married couples, little kids. So we added services, and we ended up with Christmas Eve 4, 6, 8, and 11, and most of them were full, and it was just a wonderful time to be around. Same with Easter morning. We added a sunrise service on the beach, and that thing grew and became just so wonderful because joggers and people walking with their dogs would stop by, and couples had been out all night long. We're just on their way home. We had members on Lakeshore Drive East who used to watch out their windows at us, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful memory of mine. 9/11 was a really important time. We had, of course, established this relationship with Sinai, but we also established a wonderful relationship with Holy Name. We invited Joseph Cardinal Bernardine to preach, and Francis, I'm blocking the name, but both the cardinals preached at Fourth Church and had lunch with us afterward. We became good friends. Well, that all helped when 9/11 happened. First thing we did that day was call Father Bob McLaughlin at Holy Name and the rabbi, and said, we got to do something for the community. And so we had, that very day, we began a series of community worship services, and people, I'll never forget it, how people flocked to the church, whether they were Christians or members or not. Something about that attack got to everybody, and realized we needed a little bit of affirmation of our community and our love for one another, and it was just a great time. A particular evening service during that week, we invited the Islamic Center, and you might recall, people who lived through that, most of us woke up to the fact that we didn't know a thing about Islam, and what we did know was mostly wrong and needed to be corrected. So we reached out to the Islamic Center, and they sent an imam and some people to this service, and we decided, I think it was the rabbi who was offering prayers, and he said, now I want us all to pray out loud the prayer that's typical for our tradition. And so for the Jewish people would be the Kaddish, the prayer for the dead, and Christians would be the Lord's Prayer, and maybe Roman Catholics would say some rosary, and Islamic people pray their appropriate prayers. And let's do it all together. And I will never forget the sound of those languages in our beautiful sanctuary blending, and just for a moment gathering up the oneness of humankind in a way that just I thought was just incredibly powerful. So other stories, my best friend's wedding, you might remember.
Yes.
The movie with Julia Roberts, and we were contacted by somebody in Hollywood, and Don Haggerty was our business manager, and he came in to me and said, I got somebody in Hollywood that wants to, they need to use our church for a scene in the movie. And what do you think about that? And I thought, well, I don't know a thing about this. Fortunately, Linda was on the staff. Linda had a theater major and had done some, so we kind of put her in charge. And anyhow, after a long negotiation, we arranged, we came to an agreement. And I think They needed it for a week, the sanctuary. And that portion of the movie that's at the actual wedding and Fourth Church is like a minute and a half, but it took them a week to do that minute and a half. And we had no idea what to charge. And Don Haggerty and I came up with the figure of $40,000, which we thought was great. And we learned later that they would have paid much more for the space. Anyhow, it all was really interesting. The sanctuary was full with bit actors from the theater community. They would gather at the Drake early in the morning, 6 o'clock, and for makeup and get all fixed up. And then they would walk down Michigan Avenue and come sit in the sanctuary all day long into the evening for 4 or 5 days for 90 minutes of film time. So we got to see Julia Roberts and Carmen, if I forget.
Cameron Diaz. I think Cameron Diaz.
Yeah. Yes. One of the interesting vignettes is one night, and they were fine with us kind of peeking in as long as we didn't get in the way. So before I'd go home at nighttime, if they were still working, I would stick my head in the sanctuary and just see what was happening. Anyhow, they were breaking up for the evening, and I was going to my car in the old parking lot, and here comes the actor who was the clergy in the movie. And so I thought, well, I'll introduce myself. So I introduced myself and we chatted. And turns out he was a Presbyterian, Westwood Church in Hollywood, where the new pastor, by the way, is Christine Chicoyan. So years later, when I was moderator, I was invited to preach at that church, and I did. And a fellow came up afterward and shook my hand and introduced himself. He said, "Do you remember me?" He said, I was the minister in my best friend's wedding. Anyhow, that was a wonderful moment.
I thought I would ask you, and I know this doesn't have really to do with our anniversary, but I thought it would be interesting to know what advice you might give to someone who's entering the ministry today.
I've really thought a lot about that question. The church is so different today. The mainline Protestant church is undergoing huge transition, and there just aren't a lot of available jobs that are attractive. So one of the things new ministers are having to do is to kind of figure out how to earn a living to continue being a minister. And so having dual vocations is one of the solutions. To be a school teacher, do something else, and then be. I would want to advise someone to trust your sense of vocation, trust your sense of call, trust God's providence. That somehow in this chaotic scene for the church in the 21st century, it's still the Church of Jesus Christ. It belongs to Him, not us. And we're just occupants temporarily for this period of time. Trust that God's providence is still a reality. And I love a phrase from my favorite hymn, "Praise ye the Lord, the Almighty." And I say it to myself lots of times. It's a wonderful phrase. "Hast thou not seen how thy desires e'er have been granted in what He ordaineth?" And as I look back at my life, that's a powerful reminder of God's working in wonderful ways.